Hello, welcome to part 13 of the Angular Complete series Input Property Decorator, represented by tutorial polls. An input property is a mechanism in Angular that can be used to pass data among components that share a parent-child relationship. Let's see also what the definition says about it. Open the browser and type the URL angular.io/guide/inputs-outputs. Now see the definition. It says a common pattern in Angular is sharing data between a parent component and one or more child components. You can implement this pattern by using the @input decorator and @output decorator directives. As you can see here, we have our user detail component which is rendering as a child user bio component. So now our user detail component is a parent to the user bio component, or we can say the user bio component is a child under the user detail component, and our user bio component has one input property named as biotext defined. So we can use the user bio component to render the user bio under the user detail component by passing value from user detail component. Let's quickly create the user bio component first. Run the command ng space g space c space user bio. Press enter. Alright, component has been created. Now let's run the application first. Run the command npm start and let the browser open. Alright, as you can see, application is running now. Let's first render the user bio component inside the user detail component. So how do we do that? Using the selectors. Open the user bio component.ts and copy the selector. Now open the user detail component, type Angular curly bracket and paste the user bio component, close the selector. Alright, save the change and observe the browser. As you can see, our user bio component has been rendered inside the user detail component. Now let's add the biotext property and decorate it with @input decorator. Type public space biotext :string. Here specifying string type ensures that we don't perform any operation on biotext property or variable which is not allowed on the string data type. Now we know TypeScript is all about types. Now let's mark this property as of type input using input property decorator. Just above this property type @input, press enter to resolve the reference and see here it is also coming from Angular core and open close brackets. We have now biotext property ready to receive the values as input and also include this property in our user bio component UI. Open h1 tag and close it, and for inner text resolve our property biotext by interpolation with title text as bio. Save and see the browser. See, title is rendered with no value, which is fine because we have not supplied any value to biotext property. Let's now supply some value from the user detail component. Open close square bracket, type input property name as biotext. This is how we refer to the input properties in Angular using square brackets. Now to pass the value, we have a couple of ways based on type of value. So let's first pass a constant string. Type here within single quotes, this user is from tutorial polls. Specifying a string within single quotes tells Angular this is not a property, this is a value. On a similar line, when you want to pass boolean or number, don't use single quotes. Let's save this and see the browser. Awesome! You can see our supplied value has been rendered in the UI. Now let's create another property in the user detail component. Open user detail component, public space user bio :string, and in ng on init, assign some value to user bio text. Type this.userbio equals to lorem ipsum tutorial polls. Alright, now let's assign this property to the input property of the user bio component. So inside here, in the HTML of user detail component, type the property name, that is user bio. Save and check the browser. See, Here, any valid name without single quotes means a property from scope. That could be a component or from parent. What is parent scope we will see later. For now, let's save it and see the browser. UI has been changed and our value has been passed correctly to the user bio component. Now, whenever the value of user bio property changed inside user detail component, our user bio component will show the latest value as updated. To demonstrate this, let's add quickly one button in the user detail component and add a click button event handler. First, let's write a click handler. Type public space on button click, open close function and assign the new value to user bio property. So this dot user bio equals to hello, tutorial polls. Now add a button in HTML. Type button and close the element inside button and click wrap in parenthesis equals the handler that is on button click. Give the button text as change bio. Parentheses are used to bind events in Angular. Same as click, you can bind other element specific events, for example on change, on key down, etc. We will understand more of it later. For now, let's save the change and observe the browser. Now click on the change bio button and see the property value has changed the text on UI. Let's see one more thing. If you remember from the section where we discussed about event lifecycle hooks, ng on changes was not firing. Let's now add ng on changes back to our user bio component because we have now input data on property defined. Type comma and type interface on change. Resolve the reference by pressing Ctrl space and hit enter. Then inside component, press again Ctrl press space and press enter on ng on changes. Now add console log inside. Save the changes and observe the browser console. You see here it's logged once. Let's click on the button and see it's logged again because our input data on property has been changed. In ng on changes, you can check which particular property has been changed and can perform some actions. Avoid writing any complex logic inside ng on changes. Angular calls ng on changes with an input parameter. The equivalent interface for property change is simple changes. Type simple change colon simple changes. Resolve the reference. Now, for each input property change, when this hook will be called, we can check which property has changed and we can perform some operations based on the change in the property. Type if simple change dot property name, that is bio text, and then dot, and see we get a couple of options as previous value, current value, and also whether it's a first change or not. Here we are checking if the property is defined on simple changes or not. If it is defined, then it means it is the current property that has been changed and because of which this function is being called. If there are multiple input properties that have been changed, then ng on changes will execute multiple times for each property exclusively. This block executes when there is a change in biotext property. Inside, type console.log simple change dot biotext dot current value and again console.log simple change dot biotext dot previous value. Save and see the browser console again. As you can see here, it's logging the result for the current and the previous value. Let's click on the button and see it again. We get the current and previous values logged as expected. Alright, so now we know what is an input property, how do we define input property and use them. So that was it for this lecture. Thank you and let's continue our progress.